Yeah.
That's okay with me. I can start talking while I can describe the pictures. Okay, so I've been asked to talk a little bit about Bodø's project as a European capital of culture, but while we wait for the cables and screen to work, I can present myself. I tend to forget that when we talk about the project. My background is, it's important in a room like this to emphasize that my background is as a performer. I have enough experience of doing these kinds of presentations where I forget this and people think I am some sort of consultant, which is the wrong side, the dark side. So that's one of them. The other is to remember when you live in the north, to remember to always underline that you have stayed for more than a year. Because that's the same dark side. If you're one of the consultants coming from Oslo or Stockholm or somewhere, staying for a year, grabbing the money and going back, then you're also from the dark side. So I've been in Bodø for 11 years, important to say. I'm educated as a musical teacher, vocal teacher from the Academy of Music, and had 10 years as a freelancer. And I will spend the next 10 years waiting for the picture to try again.
Something with this connector, I think it's disconnected.
It works for me.
It's working for one person per day.
It was there, so let's just try again.
You want to use my computer?
No.
Do you have a Mac?
Yeah.
Maybe the problem is actually Mac, because my Mac was.
Oh, there it is.
But it was there, so let's just stay patient. And yes. Okay. Enough about me. Let's stay on time here. So I will try to. I've been asked to talk about the project, as I said, Bodø as a European capital of culture this year. I'll talk a little bit about that concept in itself, but I also try to touch on. I didn't know if we were in Norwegian or English, so we have both there. I'll try to talk a little bit about key message, which I think is related to this, to the topics these days. You are here. I'll talk about MOL, objectives for the project, which I also think will be relevant, and also try to touch on, with a few examples from this year, talk about the relation between relevance and quality. It's not either one of them, but I think there is a relation, and sometimes I think we can benefit from considering the difference between relevance and quality. And I'll also talk a little bit about weddings, because I promised some of the Swedes will get back to this, what that means. So if I forget to talk about weddings, then remind me in the end. I'll be as quick as possible. So, we start with the key message. So Bodø is a part of Nordland, where we are now, next city north of us here. When we were starting to develop this application to become a European capital of culture, one of the first things you have to do, which I think is relevant for all of us again, is to find a key message. The key message has to be unique, it has to be about us, it has to be about who we are, and hopefully you find something that is not repeatable, that cannot be copied, because that's what gives us the niche, as you talked about yesterday. So starting to build a key message for Bodø, we have to profile the city. The city has 53,000 inhabitants, it's part of a region with 243,000 people, it's the regional capital of Nordland County, it's above the Arctic Circle, and the story is about fish and flying. That's the shortest story I can present, and we'll go into a little bit more of details, but this is a way to describe. If you meet someone from a different part of the world asking, so where are you from? We tend to be able to zoom out and get this macro perspective. What are we? Well, we are about this. The older history is about fisheries, the new history is about aviation, so fish and flying is an okay summary. So going into a little bit more detail, this is the view from my kitchen. until 2013, my view was about 12 meters into the next wall at Grünerløkka in Oslo. Very nice place to live, but very different from this. The point of the picture is not to brag about my view, but to talk about that this is in November, early December, I don't remember the exact date, but it's around the darkest day of the year. So again, back to the key message of what we are. People have the impression that when you go to the north, it's bright in the summer and it's completely dark in the winter. So you have a very, very rough black and white impression of what is this place about. But a clear day in the north, as you all know, can be very colorful and bright, of course for a few hours shorter than in Oslo. But I've lived in both cities and I can tell you that a grey day in Oslo in December is not specifically or especially bright. So trying to build this key message and also deciding, as we touched on in the last talk here, what are we, who are we, and how do we want to present ourselves, and find the unique and positive features. To me, this is one of them. You know that you have this impression that you live in a dark region. The winter is dark and depressive. You stay inside, hiding from polar bears, drinking expensive beer, and then maybe you come outside in May, if you're lucky, if you survive the winter. That's not a message to sell. So this message, this is a winter day in the north. It's colorful, it has nuances, and it has qualities that we want to present. So in a way, we're trying to build a key message that is about what is our perspective. So this is Europe from our perspective. This is how we want to present ourselves. This is a Swedish idea, just so I'm fair there. Umeå did the same thing with their project in 2014, insisting for a period of presenting the European map upside down. Most of us believe that we live on a globe, so upside down doesn't really make sense outside of the Mercator world, but it's still enough of a difference compared to what we're used to that it is part of a message. This is Europe from our perspective. And there is reasoning behind this, because when you have the traditional maps, if you Google map of Europe, then quite often we have a challenge of presenting Bodø. So this is not my cropping, this is a normal cropping of Europe to present Europe. And we have a big challenge in presenting where we are in the world and conveying this key message of what we are, who we are. We're part, again, just this final little section here about the general message of where we are. This is Nordland County, from the border down south of us now, to Andenes, the northernmost point of Nordland. So this is, if you're lucky, on a good day, this is 12.5 hours to drive. So a big part of the challenge of building some sort of cultural life in this region is, of course, for practical reasons. We can joke about it like we did in the application. We said, this is not a huge problem, it's a couple of coffee stops. But of course it is a big, big problem. It's disconnected, it's far apart, it's sparsely populated, it's challenging with regards to weather and climate. It's part of the challenge. So for us, we try to then look at what is the perspective on a key message for Nordland and Bodø when we are talking about the regional perspective. So what we ended up with was comparing this to the equal driving time. Actually, this is a bit shorter, 12 hours, or maybe it's around the same driving time according to Google Maps. So you can get from Bodø, Austria, which is our sister city this year, European Capital Culture in Austria, and also our colleagues in Leeuwarden, Netherlands. So that's also a 12-hour, 15-minute drive if you're lucky. Our point being that the map on the left probably has more in common. So being Nordlending, being from this region, is probably more uniting than being part of this region that crosses 3 or 4 countries and different cultures and different backgrounds. So the cultural connection on the map to the right would be being European, which is something. Don't misunderstand me, it is something. But when you ask, like we are doing right now actually with the research project that follows us, they ask to rate where you identify. So you rate from 1 to 10, do you identify as being from Bodø, being from Nordland, being from Norway, or being from Europe? And to a certain degree, people say that they relate to all of them, but there is no doubt that they first and foremost relate to being Norwegian. So if they get the list, Bodø, Nordland, Norway, Europe, most people say that they feel Norwegian. And then they feel like they are from Bodø, then they feel like they are from Nordland, and then they feel like they are from Europe. So again, this is a different talk to go into details about this. The point is that part of this analysis was to see what is our key message. So it's not just about darkness, it's not just about distances, it's about colors, light, nuances, and also this feeling of being part of a common cultural area, which we will get back to. Summing up, that to me, a better perspective than being far away in the darkness is being in a very compact society with everything right around the corner, nature being very close to the city, short. I mean, one of our most unique features that we will get back to very soon is that you can walk from a top-level concert hall, having an artistic experience, grab something nice to eat or a high-quality coffee, and then walk straight to the airport or even to the shore to go fishing. So, being compact is a better story than being far away. And after all, it's just one extra flight. And I hope that all of what I'm saying now can feel scalable in some way and work also in other contexts. I'll be very quick with this one. So we are part of a program. The program has been running since 1985. In 1985, the Greek cultural minister, Melina Mercouri, established this idea that she thought it was a shame that culture was a weaker part of social development. So everyone was talking about schools and roads and railways and economy. No one was talking about culture. And she saw this connection with her other big obsession was that the beaches around her native city in Greece had plastic litter on it was plastic on the beach. She wanted people to be aware what you are destroying. You have to sort of connect with where we are from. And she wanted to see if there was some sort of power in culture to make people more aware. So we are now entering the part where it gets difficult for us as performers, where we, as Andreas was talking about, get into this instrumental part. But this was the beginning of this idea. Culture is weak compared to the other sectors of social development and policy, and people seem to not care about their surroundings, and I want to do something about that. So over the years they have ended up with this description. I can we focus on the first part. This is the first paragraph about the program European Capital of Culture. So the objection is to safeguard and promote the diversity of cultures in Europe and to highlight the common features they share, as well as to increase citizens' sense of belonging to a common cultural area. So hopefully this makes sense to the first part of the presentation, but I also want to point out the next difficult part, that art is not mentioned in the general objective. They don't say anything about art. You have to create the artistic program yourself. They don't aim this program at art, they aim at culture. And we'll discuss that briefly. Yes, the rest is okay. This is the cities up until a few years after us, let's see, 26, 22, up until 28. So, the first couple of cities, they received the status the year before. So Athens got the status in 84 and they executed their program in 85. So that means they didn't do anything else than what they would normally do, probably. Maybe a concert or two extra, maybe a new exhibition here or there, but it's practically impossible to do something substantial from after summer 84 until 1985. Which means Athens, Florence, Amsterdam, Berlin, they probably were there because they were already big cities with something to offer. I understand that this is sort of, I understand that you can do something from one year to the next, but it's very limited on the large scale what you can do from one year to the next. So as the years go by, the cities are smaller and smaller, but the time span is longer and longer. So for the last couple of columns, these are smaller cities that have some sort of function for the region. They have all applied 5-6 years before the status here, and most importantly, they all have in common that they have had some sort of key message that they want to get across. They have had some sort of problem that they want to solve, some idea that can be, or some problem that can be solved partly with culture as the tool. And we won't go into details about all of them, but there are lots of great stories to analyze. And for Bodø, we will soon talk about what the result was. Also very, very quickly, just presenting the criteria that we are, in fact, that they do read and score. Again, art is not part of this. It's part of the program section, of course, but please just note that the 6 criteria that we have to sort of present or answer in the application stage, they insist that they are equally important, and maybe this is something that we can draw inspiration from as cultural workers as well. There has to be a long-term strategy. There has to be a clear idea about where you are heading. There has to be an idea about outreach, which means who do we reach with our work as of now. Now I'm talking as a city. Who do we reach and who do we not reach? So for Bodø, it was very clear that we could brag about having 110 nationalities present in the city, in the municipality, but we had no answer to where they were in the existing cultural offer. So they were not present at football games, not present at the concerts, not particularly present at the exhibitions, meaning the orchestra have their regular audience. Most of them are Norwegians between 50 and 70 years of age, and yeah, so again a different talk, but a clear idea about who do we reach and who do we not reach. In this program, the idea was to have a European dimension, could just as well be a regional dimension if that is what makes sense, or a national dimension. In this project, of course, there has to be a European dimension. Of course, there's a program and the rest is nuts and bolts. The capacity, how much can we actually do, and how do we plan to manage this. It's basically the same as the models you just had on screen, just summarized at a city level. Yeah, last part of this section before we go back to Bodø. We had, as I said, art is not part of the general objectives, so we had to have a few discussions about this. What do these terms mean? In Norwegian it works very well, because in Norwegian you can say not everything starting with Q is kunst. But it almost works in Swedish as well. It doesn't really work in English, but the point is, there seems to be some sort of almost a monopoly to the term art. There's just a few people that can use the term art, and to most people, if you ask on the street what is art, most people will relate to something visual. So it's paintings, maybe sculptures. If you ask about film, for example, then people will start to reflect and say, yeah, I know a few art films, but I also know a lot of films that are entertainment. If you ask about music, there was yeah, well, that's the point. Of course, I know some art music, but again, in general, kunst or art seems to be occupied by the visual field, and we don't really have a clear idea about where the terms start and end. So to us, again, in this project being a capital of culture, we decided that we just have to use culture for what it means. In Swedish newspapers up until the 80s, culture was the same part of newspapers as landbruk, as what's it called, agriculture. So agriculture and culture was defined as the same section of the newspaper. That says a lot. We say cultural landscape, kulturlandskap. We say business culture. We say we have a culture for this and that, but we still don't relate to how this works compared to arts. And we could go deeper into this when we are playing or singing. Who are the artists in that section? Is it just the composer who created the art, or is there some sort of art in the interpretation? To what degree are, let's say, my background as an ensemble singer, when am I just a sort of craftsman delivering something? Where is the conductor's role in this? And I won't go to some sort of conclusion on this, but the point is, as soon as we started opening this chapter, the discussion of what a couple of culture would mean in our context, we were in a rabbit hole. So, the only thing I think we should conclude on in this presentation is, in the picture behind these words, there are obvious cultural activities. These people have walked to the sauna, they've talked on the way, they've planned this on the way back, they probably plan the next trip. Maybe this is a regular bath, maybe it's once a week, maybe it's every morning, I don't know. But there's lots of cultural activity in that. That is obviously not art. We have a video of the dive, the gentleman in the red boxers. That's not a piece of art. The piece of art in this picture is the sauna. The sauna is created by an educated artist that wanted to create a conversation space. So according to all general definitions of art, the sauna is a piece of art. Going back to the example, I know it's a bad example, but I use it anyway. Go out onto the street and show them this picture and point out the art in the picture. Maybe someone will say the photo itself, but all of this is part of I don't know, the analysis of what we are trying to do. So I have to speed up, we have to quickly skip through what this means for Bodø. Why are we doing this? It's the first question in the application, why are we doing this? And from now, I'm absolutely sure we can relate to any scale of cultural production. To us, there's a very simple answer to why. It's 243,000. So, for those of you who watched the screen earlier, that's the number of people in Nordland. So the problem for Bodø is that the city wants to grow while the region is not growing, which means this number, that was the exact same in 1965 as it is in 2024, which is a huge demographic problem, because meanwhile people have gone older. So this is a big problem. So for us, it means this is our European dimension. We have to open up, both as professional, we have to use the international networks, we have to promote the city internationally, we have to be a better city to be an international citizen, we have to be an active and attractive city, and I know this is not artistic talk, but this is the big problem when we talk about city and social development in the north of Norway. I'll skip a few slides and go directly to finalizing this message. Yeah, this is gonna go okay. Summing up this part, Bodø was a small village, around 5,000 people around the last shift of the century, 18 to 1900. It grew into probably 3 times the size, around 15,000 people. This is the end of the 1930s, which means they're building a culture for handling change. This was the narrative, the message we wanted to get across. And then this culture for managing change was very, very put to a test in a very, very dramatic way in 1940, where most of the city is completely gone. Rebuilding through the 50s and 60s, Bodø ended up with a NATO base. So this is Bodø up to your left, this is the NATO base to the right, this is how it looks today. Right now they have started building a new airport because the NATO base is being moved away from people, it's too close to people, the new planes cannot touch down close to residential areas, so it's moved away from the city, and here comes the big problem or vision. relocate the airport, open up the existing airport area for city development, and here you have the answer to why we have to work with culture. Because where are these people going to come from? So in a situation where the region is declining in population, the city of Bodø is just barely keeping its numbers, and then you have the idea of growing with 20–30%. It's impossible. Without doing something, it's impossible. Yeah, more visualization. So, all in all, the key message here ends up being, if we have any ambition for the future to keep growing as a city, and we can discuss whether or not the city should grow on a different time, but the situation right now is that everything works if you keep growing, and there are different perspectives. That's not up to me. Our task is to work in such a way that culture is an important driver in this development. So Bodø is in the middle of this development. This building is an example, the next door building with Nordland Teater. This is Stormen, the library and the concert hall in Bodø. We are quite fortunate in Norway. We have all these different infrastructural features, and we have the buildings and the instruments. We have all of this. We just don't have people. We need more people. But having a concert hall like this in a city like Bodø is an extreme situation, really. Where are we with time now? I started a bit late.
No, it's fine. We have
15 minutes. Okay, so quickly skipping to objectives. What does this mean? So we talked about Bodø, about the program, about the very, very overarching general ideas, being numbers of people, being strategies for city development, being insisting on having culture as an important part of the social development, all of these things. So translating this into objectives. I'll tell you, this will get bigger soon. What we did, and again, agree or don't agree, but what we did was to create 8 strategic objectives that were almost word for word based on the criteria that we knew we had to evaluate. So we did everything backwards. We went to the evaluation, what's it called? The guidelines for evaluation from the EU. Downloaded that document, read it again, read it the third time, and then started translating. What are the, I know everything in the EU looks absolutely disgusting design-wise, but this is the actual document to the right. Trying to read and understand what are they after when we get to the evaluation in 2025. And remember, this is in 2017 when this work started. The point is not to read the goals, because they are not obtainable at the same time. They are strategic objectives, so it's impossible to measure, like goal number 8, address freedom of expression. It's impossible to measure. You can have some sort of idea, are we more open than before? Or you can say, make our cultural offer more international, number 6 there. Of course, you can measure that in different ways. You can say the same performers do more international program, or you can say we have more international performers. We don't really say anything about the details. That's not the point. The point is to have a direction that for the project, and also, as I said, to know that when we get to the evaluation, we have done something that actually works for us in a way, so we know what we are evaluating. And I'll skip the next one and go directly to this one. This is just another example of from the application part. In the section where we describe the long-term strategy, we have to put into words what can we actually do. I mean, we are a 1-year program. After that, the organization will go away. So building anything that needs drift, operational funding is impossible. Everything will be cut off. We close the company in 25 and it's done. So what can we actually do to have some sort of direction for what we are trying to achieve. So we ended up with it's basically a play on words based on the goals to say, well, if we just translate everything into C's, so we can work with competency. Competency doesn't go away when we close down the company. So if we in some qualified way can say that we work with competency, then we have done something good. We have to build capacity in some sort of way. Again, we have to go away. The money will go away. It will be spent once. So we can work on connections, like this room. The connections won't go away. And then it's details the rest, but summing up, what we can actually do, aside from the artistic program, is to make sure that we create the connections, nurture, in a way, the connections over time, and hope that this will build lasting capacity. So we borrowed the model from Leeuwarden 2018 that was operating while we were applying, and they summed it up like this. They said afterwards, after the project, they said this is what we have actually done. This is sustainability to us. So that the dots in each of these three models are you. One of them could be you. One of them could be Kulturskolen. One of them could be Nordland Theatre. One could be the municipality. All different stakeholders in cultural life. And they are at the same place in each of these models. The only thing we have done is to work to connect them closer to each other, create these sort of more stable, sustainable connection, make sure that it's not one entity trying to create their own ideas, but to make sure that when we close down in 25, hopefully we are closer to the model on the right, that can just keep operating. I can tell you that the model on the left it's a very good description of the feeling of being me in 2020. When the title was just awarded, everyone knows it's 300 million Norwegian kroner, and everything points to one place. That's not sustainable at all. It's unavoidable, it's impossible to avoid at some point, but again relating to what Andreas has been talking about, it's very, very difficult. It's not impossible. I mean, if you're good enough, you can of course be one of these dots on your own, and everyone will just call and say, we need you now at next year's festival, or we need you as an artist in residence, or we need you to write the next piece for our opening or something. It's not impossible. But for most entities or most stakeholders in cultural life, you need some sort of support around what you actually do. Okay, I promised to talk about quality and relevance. We go quicker and quicker towards the end here now. Now, what I'm presenting now is just examples of what we do, and the message really is that to us, since we already have this message in place, we know what we are doing with the strategic objectives for the project, we know what we are trying to achieve over the next few years, or now actually we are at the end of this year, pretty soon. That means that quality will always be one of the aspects that you can consider or evaluate. But it was more important than I realized in the beginning of this process to work with relevance. What is relevant in each setting? So starting off now with a few examples. This is one of our projects that is actually culminating this week, working with a very general idea that we don't have buildings left in Bodø that you can just take over. They all went away in 1940. So this feature that, for example, Berlin has had for decades, that you can have these spaces and buildings that you can just take over, or our sister city now in Austria, where they have train stations that have been automated, working only with vending machines. So there are empty buildings everywhere, and you can have this building for half a year and build an exhibition, or you can have this building and create an independent club. We don't have that. So we had to, in some way, find other ways to build temporary buildings or spaces for art. Göran Moya has been working with a container system that is movable, transportable. Again, it wasn't really our tasked to evaluate the quality of the arts. We have to trust him. He's the artistic director of that project, but we can evaluate relevance. Here, from the opening week, this is actually the South Finland Sami Theatre in the next door building here, Oriel Sami Theatre. They want to do a piece about, as you can see, wind power. What's it called in renewable power? What's it called in English? Yeah, wind generators. You get the idea. So it's up to them to create the piece, the text. We don't. It's impossible for us. The first week was just the opening night was 80 productions. The first week was well above 100 productions. It's impossible for us to go into each and one of them. But what we can do is open doors and create relevance. So this piece about wind turbines and right to land, and the whole thing was called Who Owns the Wind? What we could do was make sure that this is played in the City Hall room. So the backdrop to the play is the actual desk that the city council meetings in Bodø take place. So it gives it sort of this context of power and relevance, and makes it very on topic for the time we are living in. Now let's see what we get here. A few pictures. Yeah, just an example from the region. I wanted to bring in this. This is Håkon. He's playing saxophone. He wanted to do a concert as part of our program. To him, it was important to answer to this part of the key message that we are close to nature. So he wanted to see how close to nature could he get with his concert. So he played in Puragrotta up here in the mountains. It's a 700-meter dive down into the mountains. This is just from his test dive, but 1 year later he went back with a bass player and played a concert with, it was sold out actually, but you needed both a cave diving license and the right number of hours to be allowed to dive. So we found 40 people in the world that was able to go in. But again, we don't really, I mean, he again is the artistic director of his piece. He is the composer, he's the player, but we can talk about relevance to our program. Here it's not pictures, we're just skipping through here now. This is to me one of the best examples from this year when we consider the relationship between quality and relevance. So this is the Children's International Day, June 1st. It's all the international associations of Bodø creating this content. And as you can see, a lot of this is not arts at all. But what happens is that because of the diversity of offerings and because of the diversity of target groups working on this, it's 14 different nationalities organized in this network that we call Bodø's International Associations, the formal name of the network. They create whatever they want. But some of it is that Bodø's city center was filled with almost 15,000 people. This is not estimates, it's numbers from the tele data. And when you have 15,000 people in the city center, then you can present some quite narrow, high-quality concerts. So the main part of this day was an ensemble Andreas knows very well, La meg synge din sang. It's a very difficult title to translate, but singers and a pianist that has worked over years to learn songs in different languages. A very simple idea, but very, very well done. On its own, I would say that you can get 40 people to such a concert in Bodø. But when there's 15,000 people in the city center, you can play 3 packed concerts. So that's, again, the value for us of considering relevance and quality as 2 different terms, in a way. A few more examples. This is from August 17. We invited people in cooperation with, again, this is based on cooperation, all this of course, but based on cooperation with the Tourist Association. We invited people to walk the whole Norwegian-Swedish border along Nordlands border, that's 690 kilometers. One from each end, one group from each end. That's 21 nights in the mountains, in small cabins. And every second or third night, they met a different cultural or artistic expression. Again, the message is the same. Of course, we consider quality. We had an application round. What we did consider was not just the playing, but also the relevance, what they presented, and how close could they get to the idea that people were in the mountains. Which means this, for example, is from a dance performance from the last day when the groups met. So Jorge, the dancer, he presented a project that he called Push-Pull Matters, which was about resistance, which worked very well. It was very relevant to show this to people that was on their 22nd day of walking in the mountains. So when he worked with resistance as a dancer, I think it made sense and it was relevant. Other days it was food. Someone walked in with groceries and produce and made food. There was a Torader concert. There was a soprano and Theodor Bø concert. It was a drawer walking with them. So all kinds of different expressions, but all of them responding to this same idea that we had created the context to which they could respond. Just two more examples here. This is one of the projects I'm the most proud of, and it wasn't even planned. I have to describe before I switch the picture. So, again, talking about relevance. We did, 2 months before our opening, we did a presentation in Brussels, the 3 capital cities of this year. So, Tartu, Estonia, Bodø, Austria, and Bodø, Norway. We had 1 hour to present our project to an audience inside the European Parliament. I can tell you that's a very, very difficult venue to produce anything in, because it's very strict who can enter the building at all, and even stricter who can present something. Of course, they are very, very cautious about who gets access to these powerful rooms. But we did, and we presented 3 cultural projects with 3 different ideas or 3 different messages, to stay on topic here, to what we were working with. And of course, as cultural workers, as performers, we wanted to present some sort of artistic contribution to this meeting. So what can you do inside the European Parliament, where the rules are strict? You cannot bring, basically it's difficult to bring any technical gear at all. The message is, as you saw, about creating this sense of being part of a common area, even though we are in a diverse cultural area. So remember, the key message from from the European Union is united in diversity. So it has to be about something that connects and something that sort of binds us together. And here, of course, folk music, this is where we ended up saying that this is the best tool, because they can enter any building with a very, very minimum of tools, no technical production at all. And we used a project that has a Estonian fiddle player, Norwegian dancers, and Austrian choreographer and dancer. And we, what's the word now? We were not completely honest. We said we have an artistic contribution for the reception afterwards. But then when we were in the room doing the presentation, they snuck in the back door and entered as a surprise. So this is, I just have a few seconds because we weren't allowed to film it, but I have a few seconds before I started. You see the guy with the blue tie? That's Otmar Karas, the Vice President of the European Union. And it's, the rest of them are like ambassadors and top-level politicians. But this ended up being a very nice artistic contribution, I think. So that's just a few seconds, but the point being, I hope I get the message across, that in itself, the quality of that piece is obvious. The players are good, the dancers are good, there's no questions about the quality. The setting is almost impossible to recreate. It's almost like it ends up being part of the piece, creating this relevance in the setting. And our task in a way is to make sure that this the idea works in the setting. We could have done something completely different. We could have said, well, we are in Brussels, we are in the European headquarters, we have to play Beethoven. But that's done before, 1,000 times. So we looked for a completely different approach, staying true to sort of our own key message, our own integrity. Where are we from? So they are playing Nordlands Pulse. And it has this power of just surprising people to grab hands and start dancing, because the entry or the threshold of taking part in this specific expression isn't too high. You don't need a lot of steps to grab hands and start walking. And then they danced this long snake, I don't know what you call it in English, along the rows was one long snake until the room was empty, and then it was chairs. Very funny. Yeah. No, we can just. I can end this here now because I see that my time is up. But there are different examples of the same way of thinking. So this is hardcore contemporary music played in Bodø Cathedral, a concert that would normally gather 15 people. It's programmed on the same night as a conference on indigenous people's questions, which means all of a sudden we have 490 sold tickets to a concert that is extremely narrow and specific. So again, the sort of combination of different aspects of organizing that again can create this audience. And I think I had one last little clip that I wanted to show you. Yes, this one. So we end with this one and then we see if there are questions or anything. But this is from the opening. And this is really just for fun. We did the opening the week of 3 hurricanes, or to be honest, 2 full-scale hurricanes and 1 storm. And this was the news reportage on the night before the opening. And just end with And I promised to talk about weddings, so that has to be the last minute. I hope, by going through a few of these aspects and also showing a few examples, I hope that the key message is that what we do is almost like a magic weapon, because it's not just that we can affect people, but we can affect people at the same time. If we believe that we can affect people, affect their feelings at the same time, then it does make sense, as Andreas touched on earlier here, to have more people at the same time. Even though we have to protect our integrity, and sometimes you have an idea that you just have to execute, no matter what. Okay, it's 10 people here, I know them all by name, that's okay, we're testing an idea. But it's not a shame to have a goal of affecting more people at the same time. This last little clip here ended up being 18,000 people seeing something. We can discuss the content. It's very, very difficult to create high-level content on that scale, but it's about them. It's all original, it's about the region, all of this. So, back to the wedding picture that I promised to end with. I think it's a good idea sometimes, and this idea comes from the work we've done over the last years, to ask ourselves what happens to people when you're planning a wedding or konfirmation. You do that in Sweden, yeah? Or 10-year anniversary. I'm turning 40 in 2 weeks. What happens when we start planning these things. There is no manual. It never fits in your schedule. You can rarely afford it. So for me, I got married in 14. It costs more than I had. There were lots of people there that I rarely see. There was no manual as to how do you prepare, but we ended up ironing the shirt, and we even cut the grass and prepared the house for people coming by. You have all of these different things that we just have a culture for doing. And this, I think, is a good picture of what we can do. If we are able to scale up a little bit and create these small or big ceremonies in everyday life, it makes people get out, it makes people dress up. They might even stop by a restaurant before or after the concert and have a conversation that they didn't have time to do the day before, or they didn't prioritize. All of these different functions, I think, is the best result of what we are doing. That we're doing this more often over time, and hopefully people get used to live culture, going out and meeting. So I hope the picture works. It's not necessarily about the manual, it's not necessarily about the formatting, it's not necessarily about big or small, but it's about this effect that culture has on people, that you do a little extra. You button the shirt, you empty the trash, you cut the hedge, you prepare even though no one really asked you for it. And with this, I say takk.
Takk så jättemycket. Henrik, tack för ja, det var fint. Jag tror inte vi trenger mer än 5 minuter. Jag tror att vi trenger en kvarter i hvert fall. Minst. 15 minutes break. Then we'll start with some ideas for production. I will just run to the Klokken 12.
Det är ju så flott.
Ja, det är också bra.
Er jo altså den eneste norske folkedanseren med masterfotografi. Han var den første folkedanseren som gjorde en høyskolemaster i 2020. Han viste seg som en tilfeldighet en danser som var i Østerrike, som er på en måte stipping image. Altså han er den første Østerrike, en litt annen bakgrunn, han kom fra klassisk ballett. Og så bestemte han seg at jeg må litt tilbake til mine røtter. Som forlot en jobb som ensembledanser på et av husene i Østerrike, og brukte liksom den koreografien. Og så har de selvfølgelig funnet hverandre, for de er jo da to dansere med klassisk utdanning. Så de har laget dette prosjektet i november, og bygget mest, men hatt ut i veldig sånn De skulle vise 10 minutter av arbeidet som en sånn prosessvisning på måten. Så alt var like klart utenfor. Og så fant jeg det er jo bare det var magisk, fordi folk ble ikke forberedt. Ikke sant? Nå kommer det et stykke der dere skal reise opp og holde hender, og vi skal gå sammen. Det ville aldri gått. Så man bare fått satt seg på skuldrene til Sigurd, så gikk de inn, så roper han bare Dear friends, citizens of Europe, rise and join hands. We are dancing